Good evening and welcome to Whiskey Wednesday. Joining again is my co-host, the ninja, Dr. Jason Pittman. In tonight's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about why we should be vulnerable and why it's a bad idea to protect people in the workplace. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Ford, and this is EchelonOrchid.
Guess who's back?
Ninja, what's going on? Cheers, my friend. What are you drinking tonight? Oh, shit, I didn't turn your sound back on. There we go. There we go. How about now?
Microphone check, 1, 2, 3.
Exactly. This is always the thing about doing live. You never know what's going to happen. I'm a one-man show over here.
You gotta tempt the whammies, man. So I was saying I got Sierra Nevada Hazy Little Thing IPA.
Very nice, very nice. So, getting closer at the distillery, I decided to break out a good old Downslope Distilling. This is their rum that has been aged in a Cabernet barrel. And so it takes that rum, you can see that nice, lovely color, and completely changes it from a mixing rum to a sipping rum. Very, very buttery. Dig it. Mitch out there at Downslope is crazy genius, and I was figuring out, we got one more inspection done today on the mechanical, and it passed.
Good.
So we're getting closer and closer. This weekend, we're going to start working on formalizing our whiskey recipes. Like for the other stuff, the rum, the gin, the flavored vodkas is relatively straightforward because you get your flavors from mainly the botanicals that you're using. But in whiskey, you don't. Whiskey, pretty much you get, like, in my opinion, you get a part from the yeast, a part from the water, apart from the grains that you're using, and then in part the barrel. And so I think today in this massed production society, they tend to only focus on quantity over quality, and they rely heavily on the aging process. Whereas I think they could bring things to market faster, but they're okay with waiting years because they've got big warehouse space. I think that's the wrong approach. I think, just like we've talked about many times, if you're going to do something, then do it well. Mm-hmm. Whatever it is. Don't half-ass it. Don't just dial it in. If you're going to choose to do it, then do everything you can to be the best. And so for us, it's like, okay, we're going to make sure everything we do is high quality. I don't need to make $1 million a year. I'm going to make a good product, and I want people to like it, and want to be able to pay people well, and I want to be able to make some good money myself.
Well, right, and that attitude doesn't preclude you from making $1 million. It's just not the goal.
Yeah. If I made $1 million a year, I definitely put a lot of money back into the community. For me, at least, our core principle, regardless, is $1 for every bottle sold goes to some type of nonprofit, charity, whatever it is, to build up a community. And depending on the average is about, I'd have to go back and look, but from memory, it's about 11% of our top end revenue. So it's before profit. So, because for those that don't know, most states require a 3-tier system. So, when you buy that from the liquor store or you're getting a drink at the restaurant, wherever it is, I sell the product to distribution, and then distribution sells that to the restaurant or the bar. Or not the bar, but the liquor store. And so essentially, if it was $30, I would likely be able to sell that to distribution at around 15, and distribution selling that to the other side at about 24. Now you might be going, oh, well, I'm making $15. Well, I'm making $15 of revenue. It costs me $8 to make. So I make $7. And then the distributor's making roughly $9. And then restaurants, bars make the most out of all of it by far, because you think about it. You go and get an old fashioned. That old fashioned's costing you probably, depending on the one, but $16 for 2 ounces. So you keep doing the math. 4 old fashions pays for the whole bottle.
Well, see, tell me what you think about this. I would imagine you kind of think the same way. That's why I actually would argue that if you're going to a bar or a restaurant as a patron, it's actually cheaper overall to drink the more expensive stuff, because one, you don't have to get it mixed with anything. You can get it with a ice cube or neat, so you're getting more of the ounces without the additives, right, to distort the size. And you're going to drink less because it's better quality.
In principle, yes. I mean, if I'm going to have something to drink, I'm going out. Sorry. So, the missus and I can both cook really well. So when we go out, we're going out for the experience. Mm-hmm. We're not going out for, it's not a cheap date, right? We're going out for the experience. We're going out to enjoy our time. And I want high quality product and white glove service. That's right. Otherwise, why go out? The whiskey I got here is pretty damn good, and it's much cheaper than going out. So when we go out, we're looking to enjoy our time, and we want white glove service.
Sorry,
is that the refill?
Yeah, beer delivery.
Nice.
No, I agree with you, man. Yeah. But I think that's also part of being older, being wiser. We've talked about this in prior episodes, and knowing what you want out of time and money, and using money that we've earned to embellish that time in a positive way. You're creating an experience and memory.
Yeah. I didn't tell you this in the pre-show. Over 900 subscribers today. Hit the 900 marks.
Fucking cheers, dude.
Yeah. And so YouTube, and I've been using vidIQ to do a lot of promotions. They've got a lot of little analytic stuff, and it's relatively inexpensive. So there's a little discrepancy. So I'm not sure which number is correct. According to vidIQ, in the last 12 months, we're over 3,000 hours watched. YouTube says I'm at 2,600. So there's 400 hours difference. Regardless, I need 4,000. So based on my projections, we'll have the 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours watched by the end of the calendar year. And then so, most of the episodes right now, they're getting pretty close to 1,000 views. not that this matters too much, but every episode that gets 1,000 views is a whopping $18 on average. So I'm like, hey, I'll be able to pay the internet bill for this.
Yeah, right. But that's something.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just funny because I just go, because a lot of people, like, I was talking with my dad, and he's like, hey, why are you doing this? I mean, well, this is all about the brand, right? I've got a lot of, high quality friends and colleagues. And eventually I'd like this, I want this to be, a consulting company where we can do stuff and we can help small companies. I am not interested in any big brands ever really doing anything for them. I feel like they do more harm to the economy than they do good. I don't feel like they're growing. I feel like they're just doing enough to make the stock prices go up. And hey, well, I would get to that point, and then I'd be like, well, I'm no longer for you. But because I just want to continue to help small business owners get better. And part of that is they need to be contributing back to the communities in which they're serving as well. And so all this whole show is just about helping to build that brand recognition into that aspect.
Well, wouldn't you agree with the idea that to some varying degree, maybe a large degree, for that to be successful, there has to be mutual vulnerability?
Oh, absolutely. It does.
I set that up.
Yeah, you're doing well. So it's almost like we've known each other for about 10 years.
Or we had a pre-show.
Yeah, that's it. Right, that does get into this aspect of the topic, and I guess the first question I'm going to ask you, and I think you can take this into any relationship, whether it be professional or personal.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think we as humans have such a problem showing vulnerability in our relationships? And first, I'm going to define a relationship in that it's a person that is worthy of you, the two of you spending mutual amount of time together. Like you're both invested into something, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's always going to be people that aren't invested, and so here's a pro tip out there for you people. One of the things that we learn old school in the Intel side is you want to figure out who matters to you. Take a look at any of your communication apps you're using, phone, whatever it is, text, Snapchat, Instagram, DMs, whatever it might be. The people that matter most to you and to them, you have pretty equal amount of exchanges of you sending and receiving. If you happen to send more than you receive, then you like that person more than they like you. And if you happen to receive more than you send, then that person likes you more than what you like them. And so if you want to figure out where those dynamics are, the people that you have a mutual amount of exchanges that are high, those are your close circle of people. And yeah, sure, there's always exceptions, but in most, that's what it is. That's also how we find typically people in different circles, especially in the bad actors, because hey, if this person's a bad person and this bad person is having a lot of two-way communications, that person you're probably having two-way communications with is likely a bad person, and you're going to want to investigate them too. But there's your pro tip. So that's the table I'm setting for you. Why do you think we have such a problem as a human to be vulnerable?
I tend to think that the root cause is that as individuals we refuse to take responsibility for our own freedom. And I don't mean freedom like the freedom to do X, Y, and Z. What I mean is our own personal sovereignty. And so the reason I say that for me as a root cause is because in order to be vulnerable with you, I need to be free to choose that, and I need to be free from a perceived consequence for having, let's say, said something to you, right? And so I'll give you an example that illustrates this for me when I realized this principle for myself. Years and years and years ago, I was working at a big company, and I got up into middle management, and the person I reported to was the CIO, and the guy was just off the rails, dude. Didn't show up to more meetings than he did with me. Like, if you invite me up to your office, which is hours away, and you don't show up on that day, and that's the only reason I drove up there, that's like fucking kind of a problem, dude, right? So that kind of business. And then through a series of reflective exercises and talking to some people, I realized, well, wait a minute. Why don't I just tell this guy the truth and be vulnerable? Because short of him bringing in a gun and shooting me, he really has no power over me. Well, he can fire me, sure. And so this is where you say, I don't care. It's not that I don't care. It's that I don't care about that consequence. I'm immune to it because I've accepted the responsibility for my own freedom. That's how I perceive it. And I think if people were more comfortable taking responsibility for their own freedom of being themselves, that would lead them to being vulnerable because they're being authentic. And so, look, man, I could get into a situation in the near future where I might get asked about some habits I have, and I might have to explain that. You have to accept the responsibility for your own freedom and be comfortable in explaining those things, right?
Sure. And so here's a way in which people, I think, can be a little bit more free, which is, a basic tenet that I think we both share, and that is, are you doing everything you can to be better tomorrow than you are today? And if the answer to that is yes, there will always be an employer out there that will want your services because you're skilled.
Right.
No matter what the economy is like, it does not matter. If you have a high skill level, you will be employed. And that's a big reason why I do everything I can to ensure my people are highly skilled, because I want them to choose to work with me, not because they have to work with me. That way they're never yes people. So I'm trying, for me, I think in many ways, the reasons why people aren't as vulnerable as what they could be is because those that, one, well, I look at this from a leadership perspective first, and that is, if I'm not able to be vulnerable, then that means the people that I report to have not provided me the tools necessary to not be a yes man. If you're a woman, yes woman, whatever you want to identify as, And so what I did is, I'm skilled enough. It's not that I don't care. It's that I know I can go be a CIO somewhere else. Like I'm not concerned.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the people below me, they don't realize it yet. And so what I want to do, I want to empower them with so much of my experience so they can stand on the shoulders of giants, so to speak, and knowledge, so they will never be a yes person. I think that's the first part is from a leadership aspect is, am I giving them everything that they need to be able to be vulnerable? That comfort.
Well, right, because if you're going to pick up that mantle of personal freedom and vulnerability, you have to exist in a framework that supports it.
Yeah, look, not everyone's an apex predator like you and I. And actually, I don't even go an apex predator. Like it's there's an aspect of that. Most people are I don't want to say beta, because that's not really what I mean. They're
passive. Yeah,
they're passive, and so I need to get them comfortable just saying whatever you think, and know that, hey, unless you're being disrespectful, which is
that's completely different,
right?
Yeah.
Give me your opinion. I don't care if it's a biased opinion. It's your opinion, therefore it's already biased. I'm fine with that. I want to know what you think.
Well, see, right, and because what you're talking about really are these, and we've talked about this over long conversations, over long episodes over the years, are these behavioral incentive gradients. And so you can look at this from an opposite direction. Most people won't speak up in a group. Why? Because it's uncomfortable. And so the incentive gradient is such that speaking is higher than not speaking. And so you have to have enough energy to climb that gradient. If you flip it so that the culture it's more uncomfortable to not speak up, that gradient gets inverted. And even people that are naturally very passive, timid, shy, however that manifests, are going to be more, they're not all going to do it, of course, and that's okay. But you're going to get more people participating. And so this is a common thing. I did this 1 hour webinar last week for the University of Maryland. I mean, I can't tell you how fun it was because people participated. It wasn't me just talking for an hour, which is boring as shit even to me. Why? Well, because I've studied how to flip those gradients so that people are more incentivized to talk than not talk. Here's how I did it, by the way, in case you're curious. Great question. I don't know if you've ever used Poll Everywhere. It's a cool little online tool that you can use. Like I used it a lot at High Point University in classrooms. We can set these little questions. Everybody can go to a URL or through the app and access it, and it's real time. Well, I rigged that up, and this is where I learned this lesson. When you have a lemonade stand as a kid and you want to sell it, you put some money in the jar to make it seem like you've been selling. Simple principle. Well, I rigged these polls up the same way, where I built them so that they already had some preceding data in it so that they looked like people were responding. So when people looked at it, they saw people respond, they were incentivized to respond because they didn't want to be left out.
Especially when it's somewhat anonymous.
Right, yeah. Right. And I wasn't using it for research, so me skewing it's fine, right? It was more just to get people interacting.
Right, because you know what the preloaded data is, and therefore can extrapolate it out and go, okay, this one really didn't have the highest opinion. It was this one, because you know what the preloaded data is.
Listen, if I'm being honest, there were really just ways for me to stop talking for a minute and take a drink of beer. But no, reality.
I hear you. I'm not judging.
No. In reality, it's we've all been to webinars or classes where somebody talks nonstop, or meetings when one person talks nonstop. It is boring as shit and it's meaningless. Meaning is derived from conflict. In this case, I mean dialogue and conversation. It doesn't have to be negative conflict.
Well, it should never be negative.
Right.
I mean, and I think that's a big part is why some people are hesitant to be vulnerable is because they feel like it's going to become negative. If it becomes negative, then again, that means the people that you're surrounded yourself with are just assholes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Pure and simple. Right? There's a difference between someone in the heat of the moment kind of losing their self, because we're human and it's going to happen. But if someone is negative towards you, which is different than providing feedback that can be perceived as negative, right? So what I mean by that is no matter what, whenever you get feedback, positive or negative, it needs to be specific, right? It is, if I were to say, hey, Jason, good job. What the fuck does that mean?
I mean, at that breath I just took, like,
right? Like, hey, Jason, last week at the meeting with the board, you truly commanded the topics of discussion, and it was well delivered and well received. You know exactly what I'm talking about, and you know, I mean, there it is. Or I could have said, hey, Jason, last week at the board meeting, you weren't on point for these, ABC topics. Mm-hmm. Next time, I need you to command that more. That's specific. And again, it's not, it's somewhat negative, but you now know exactly what is expected of you next time. And so, oh, okay, I didn't realize. Awesome, right? The next board meeting, you're going to make sure those particular areas done.
Right.
There's no problem with that. Like, to me, I desire that. I didn't do something? Okay. I think in those moments, a lot of people need to, don't be defensive, ask clarifying questions so you can get more specific information from the person giving you the feedback, so you know. Because you might ask in return, well, hey, Dan, I delivered this. Was this not clear? In what ways could this be clear to you? Well, now I'm going to tell you. Because here's a great thing about people. We love to correct people. So, we're going to tell you.
Yeah, well, and sometimes even just being vulnerable and asking, well, can you give me an example of how you would have done that?
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely say with 100% certainty, I was never as receptive to criticism as I am now. And it really, in complete transparency, was, and I say this, about many things, started going through the doctorate program. That's really solidified for me. It's not about being right. It's about accepting or rejecting the null hypothesis, period.
Yeah, in order to be successful in an endeavor like that, because of the way the whole system is rigged up, you really have to figure out how to detach from things and figure out how to take what somebody's telling you, whether you personally agree with it or not, and do something to demonstrate that you synthesized it and made a change as a result of it. And in some cases, you and I know people that were like this. You had to do that just so they felt they got their ego stroked a little bit. But that's politicking. And that's the nature of the world, man. That's relationship grooming.
Yeah, and I really took this to the next level of, regardless of the combat sports, chess, you name it, it really solidified this aspect of either I win or I learn. Mm-hmm. Period. It's not a loss. I don't care about that loss. What did I learn from it? You can learn something from winning, but you can really learn something from losing. And I'm comfortable in losing as long as I can realize, was it my mistake, or were they just that much better? And I think there's a big difference, because if they're better, they can put me in a position to where I didn't know what to do, or did I just make a mistake? And you know what? I'm comfortable with both. I actually truly believe I'm more comfortable with I made a mistake, because then that means I know how to fix it. If they were just better and put me in a position, I'm not necessarily sure I understand how they got me into that position, with whatever it might be, politically, chess, jiu-jitsu, whatever.
In some endeavors, it could just be one of those things that you're just never going to be that good.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, perfect example, I've talked about like my Swift racing, right? 2 races ago when I got second place, that was a tactical error. And as soon as it happened, I knew it was an error. I just convinced myself that it was going to be okay in the moment, right? So it was like a double tactical error. The last time, I just didn't have the legs to keep up with that person.
Oh, so let me ask you this.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're never going to race in the Tour de France, which is like the creme de la creme of bicycle racing, right?
Right.
Does that bother you?
No.
So if you know you're never going to get there, why do you keep racing?
Well, this is a really good question. So there's multiple.
I know, that's why I asked it.
Yeah. Well, it's a great conversation, man. I actually really enjoy this shit. On one hand, I'm convinced that if I had gotten into racing much, much, much younger, it's possible I could compete. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. Now, to give a parallel, I also enjoy running a fair bit. I don't think I'm built structurally to be a good endurance runner.
No,
I'm just not
dude,
structurally built for that.
you're built like a dwarf. I mean, like
Right.
a dwarf from like, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, right.
You're just missing
but
the
certain
beard.
types, yeah. But certain types of cycling, I probably, with enough time, could be better than I am. Now, here's the other part of the answer. Because I enjoy the sport, and I recognize the need for physical health, I'm happy competing with the large group of people that are like me. And that's a big enough swimming pool or a tank or a pond or whatever the fuck you want to call it for me to rise up far enough that that's enough for me to feel like I'm accomplishing something at a scale that's manageable for me.
Actually, I completely disagree with you.
Okay.
And here's why.
About what I'm saying or about your view of how you are?
No, I think people that are in general doing something. I don't think it matters in any way, shape, or form about the Tour de France. I think you're competing against who you were yesterday.
Oh, yeah, no, entirely. Yeah. Well, and I've said this before, though. That's what I actually like about cycling, and what I like about this racing in particular is so you have a style of cycle racing called time trials.
Yeah.
And even though there's other people riding, it's you versus the clock. And what you're really trying to do is beat your best clock.
Yeah.
And that's what all these Swift races are like. Even though there's hundreds of people, you're really just trying to beat a clock. There's something very pure about that.
Yeah. I mean, because again, all right, I'm doing jiu-jitsu. I'm never going to be anywhere close to Gordon Ryan. Ever. I won't be anywhere close to Craig Jones. I won't be anywhere close to so many. But what I'm competing against right now is who I was 5 months ago. Am I better than what I was then? Absolutely. That's what I'm competing against. I'm no longer competing against. I don't feel like I need to ever go to like ADCC, and I look that I will never do it. I mean, it's just, but it doesn't matter to me. Not now. I also know that if I had been doing jiu-jitsu at 18, like when I started traditional martial arts, yeah, I could have gone to ADC. I feel very confident I would have qualified to go. Would I have won? No clue, but I know I could have qualified to go.
Do you think you'll do any local tournaments?
Yes. They have age specific. They have age specific and with weight, and I will.
Specific, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely will.
Right, and so you'll take some pride and pleasure out of performing well when you do that, right?
Yeah. But in essence, this is the part where I was like, hey, the part I disagree with. Like, look, I don't think it matters. I think it matters that you are better than what you were the last time you did it. Now, at a certain point in time, you're not going to be able to. Like, you're 90 years old, you're not going to be better at 90 than you were probably at 60. Right? At a certain point in time, it's going to go opposite. Like, every day you're going to have, but keep going. Then which is, again, still saying, all right, I always look at it as, in these kind of cases, no matter what it is, did I give 100% of the time that I was doing this? Did I give everything I could? And if I did, okay.
Well, see, and I think that's also, as part of this vulnerability, why it's important to separate the actual components that are in that. And so I would argue that the racing against, or let's say actually a better way to say it, racing with other people, because that positions it differently, is one thing, and that's its own structure. The act of doing it, I think, is what you're talking about. And so the act of doing it is the system of self-improvement, which we're comparing iteratively to ourselves over time, right? But dude, I fucking have fun passing people. I have fun getting past. one's more fun than the other. Well, obviously, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
So let me ask you this. All right, you do one of your races, and you have two scenarios. You won the race, but it was your overall worst time in your history. Is that better than you came in last place, but it was your personal best time?
it's worse. I derive more pleasure out of my personal, because at the end you get like a scoreboard, right? It breaks down on your values. I get more out of personally, which is to your point, getting second, but getting personal bests, because this is what I was saying, those components are separated, right? And so I've gotten third place, but set a PR for a certain value. And I'm actually much happier about that than the first places I got.
Absolutely agree. I would rather have my personal best record set and lose, come in dead last. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah.
Than have a bad day and was first. Because I like.
No, totally. Well, just, on that note too, maybe you started to experience this with rolling with people too. I've had workouts, even last week I had two out of 5 workouts that I couldn't complete. Now, there's a variety of complex factors that go into that, right? But the fact of the matter is, I get into it, let's say the ride's supposed to be an hour, and I get a half hour in, and dude, I'm fucking done, I'm tired, I'm mentally fragmented, I can't do it. I actually get more out of that kind of suffering than I do completing the workouts. Because I like hitting that wall and finding out what the limit is. Well, because I know in 2 weeks I'm going to come back and redo it, and even if I don't finish it, I'm probably going to get 10 to 20% farther into it.
So, at what point do you feel, and maybe this disappointment's not going to be the right word, but at a certain point in time, you're not going to be able to be better than you were yesterday, at least physically. Mentally, I think there's never a limit.
Mm-hmm.
But, in doing, whether it be jiu-jitsu, whether it be running, right, any physical activity, at a certain point in time, you're no longer capable. Do you think you'll feel disappointment?
I'm sure at some level, I'm sure at some personal deep level I will. But I think what tempers that or balances it is the ability to look ahead and see it coming and readjust the goals around it. Like, okay, so here's an example. When I first started getting into cycling, road cycling, my goal was every ride was going to be 10% faster. Mm-hmm. So at the range of rides I was doing at that point, you're talking about like 3 minutes off of 40 minutes. It's significant, but it's not the biggest fucking deal, right? My goals now are different because my fitness and my knowledge of how to ride the bike is substantially more because it's been fucking 10 years, right? So at some point, that's going to come back down. I'll probably be disappointed because it's just a recognition of your own mortality, and that's something I think to mourn, and I think that's actually healthy to some degree. It's not healthy if it consumes you and now you don't do anything anymore, which is why I hope I can temper it, or I have people around me to help me in that vulnerability to readjust those goals. And so maybe at some point the goal becomes just to get up and ride a bike, right? Dude, just put on your shoes.
For me, that's where I want to take the knowledge of my activities and exponentially focus on that into other people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, and let's, I don't necessarily know that I agree with the different controversy around Rickson Gracie or not. I mean, the guy, I've watched his fights. Like, this guy is like perfect when it came to fighting. I never saw any flaws, and no one can really seem to point out any flaws in him.
Hey, I don't know that the guy's 400 now. What I know is I never saw him lose.
Right. I mean, I
never saw him lose.
And what he says now is, hey, I can't roll, but what I can do is teach people what to do. Mm-hmm. I can do this. So I think at that point when and I'm sure he still does. I'm sure he still does something. He's just not. Like I don't know how old's the dude? 70?
He's old, man. I mean, he's definitely older.
Yeah, and so it's his knowledge at that point. And so I shift my goal from I still want to do as much physical activity as I can, but I want to shift my goal into how many, and I do this still today. How many people can I make great?
Yeah.
That's it. And so you might get to that point where you're 70 years old. Maybe you've been around a bunch of, cycling clubs, teams, and now you can start truly teaching that generation next coming up. Hey, you do this. This is a little bit better. You do this. You do this. You just get those little tweaks. Those things that they can't get from unless they learn it the hard way.
Yeah, well, because this is the way we're rigged up as animals. There's a tremendous amount of our wisdom that can only come through actualized or practically applied knowledge, which itself only can be accumulated through experience.
Yeah.
Like when to shift a bike or move an elbow one way or the other can't be gleaned from a book. You have to experience that.
Yeah, I mean, you can read it.
Yeah, but it has no context.
Right. You can intellectualize it, but until you have to do it, I mean, it's a great thing like in jiu-jitsu. It's all about everything, just like with shifting of the bike, it's about timing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you're too soon, didn't work. If you're too late, it didn't work. Right? Too late, or actually no. Well, too soon, you have to use more strength. And that means you're going to gas out quicker. Too late, and you probably got choked out.
Right. Yeah.
So, either way, if you gas out too soon, you're eventually going to get choked out. But
I think this is real quick.
Yeah,
I think this is a reason why it's important to be vulnerable, so that you get to experience as many moments as possible over this long period of time in which you're accumulating knowledge and actualizing into wisdom that then you can figure out how to impart to other people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So there's a second part of this conversation, which I think there's an aspect in any group setting. I mean, it's probably I don't know so much in the academic world, but definitely in the corporate world, that people are very hesitant to, and I don't mean throw under a bus, but to call an action out as, hey, this is messed up. What are we going to do to fix this? And some people might go, oh, you threw me under a bus. Well, no, you had an opportunity to tell everyone yourself, right? That's the first part. Anytime someone says, hey, you threw me under a bus, my immediate response is, no, you're just an asshole, because you had the opportunity. Because most likely, if I'm going to bring something up in a group forum, I'm going to be like, hey, Jason, look, you or your group, which is the same thing as you didn't do what you were supposed to do, and now we're hurting. Now, we're getting ready to go into our overall all hands meeting. If you don't bring this up, I am obligated to bring it up. I would hope people would do that. A lot of people, they don't. Well, and even still, there's a better way to do it if you don't do that. I'm like, hey, Jason, the numbers aren't there, bro. What's going on? I still need to do that. Now, there's a lot of people out there that would rather go into protect mode. And I would posit, when you try to protect your people in those kind of forums, especially, I mean, again, hopefully everyone's doing things that are, like Chatham House rules. We're all trying to get better. We have provided a safe space so we can have healthy conflict. I don't know that it always exists, but I feel like we need to do this. And as a leader, if it starts to feel like it's a personal attack, our job is to come in and be like, hey, stop. because we need to attack the results so we can have better future results. Never attack the person, because I want to believe that at the executive level and even middle management level, most people are good people and they want to do the right thing, and they try to do the right thing. And when it doesn't happen, they want to fix the problem before they come tell you about it. But regardless, you bring it out. So I go, if you're trying to protect someone in a public forum like that, you're doing them a disservice. I think you actually are hurting them, and you're showing that you don't trust that they can handle the critique to become better.
Well, I agree with you, and I would also add that what you're doing is also poisoning the messaging. Because look, man, the worst thing you can do when there's a predator in front of you is run, because it's going to chase you, and it's probably bigger and stronger and faster than you. So it ain't going to work out too well, right? That's the way the animal kingdom's rigged up.
I don't understand how that is. As an apex predator, I don't get that. I don't run.
I watched some documentaries.
This is what I know. If I came across a polar bear, all I know is what the end result is. I'm going to have a nice fur coat.
I was going to say I get some new boots.
So I got that. Some reporter actually asks Hickson Gracie that over in Japan. He's like, how do you think you would fare against a polar bear? He's like, I've never really thought about it, but I can assure you at the end, I'm going to have a nice fur coat. Great
right,
line.
and so, in these moments when the offense is coming, the worst thing you can do is get defensive, because it's just going to invite stronger offense, and that's not what you want. What you want is to de-escalate so that the messaging is clear, and so that people have an opportunity to respond to it, not necessarily respond to it verbally, right? But to respond to it through just their conditioning their own reaction to it is probably a fair way to state it. And I agree with you, man. Protecting people only enables that passiveness. It only enables that fear of our own freedom. I don't think it does anybody any good whatsoever, up until the point where it becomes abusive. But that's where I think we also have a moral obligation to step in and stop the abuse in any situation.
Absolutely. I really, there are people that thrive on making other people look bad, and then
Sure.
You know what, cut the cancer out.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like the one thing, I'm like, hey, the example earlier, I'm like, hey, bro, you didn't really bring it with these particular data points, and you got to own this. And here's this. Next time, I need you to be a little bit better prepared for these kind of questions. Right? Maybe it was your first meeting. Maybe it was a completely different board member, whatever it might be. But I got to tell you, like, these are the things that I want you to work on. Again, your next obligation is to, unless it's crystal clear what I'm giving you, all your obligation is, well, I felt I was pretty prepared, but I hear you. So, in what manner what would you have changed? What things do you think I missed, so I can go back and which is perfect. Again, that's not defensive, right? This is the biggest thing.
That's a conversation.
Yeah, like, change as you as a leader, or if you're receiving the information from somebody particularly. Don't use a why question. Why questions make defensive. What and how. Like those are the ones that go, okay. So what should I have done? Not, why are you saying this? Or, Jason, why did you say it like that? I mean, immediately, intellectuals we'll digest it a little bit differently, but still, we might slip up because it's still a why question. That why did you do that? versus what reasons did you provide that information? Like, what was your thought process? That's a completely different thing than going, why did you do that? So pay
They have
attention.
a completely different tone.
Oh yeah, it's huge. Remember, everything's a negotiation. Everything.
Exactly.
Treat it
Right.
as such.
But I think it's a key technique that we ought to foster in people is to treat things as dialogues, as conversations or negotiations. And that's not bad. I think that defuses and it rebalances that behavioral incentive gradient. When people feel comfortable talking with one another about important things, that's going to invite them to drop their defenses and be more vulnerable with one another, and everybody's going to win as a result of that.
100%. This is why I think a lot of people aren't vulnerable as much as what they could be. Because they believe their personal success is more important than the group's success.
Yeah, well, and they also live under the delusion that they themselves can entirely be responsible for their own success. You see this in team sports when you get one person that thinks they can carry the entire team across the entire game of all games. That's rare. Some sports it's impossible.
I can't think
Tour de France.
I can't think of any sport that's set up in a team environment where that's possible. I mean, look, there's, in my opinion, Joe Montana is still the best quarterback to ever play. Tom Brady's second, which hurts me because he's a Michigan man. But Tom Brady had a quote just the other day. He's like, I don't understand why you give me this much credit. If the center doesn't snap the ball correctly, I don't look good. If the offensive line doesn't protect me, I don't look good. If the receiver that I'm throwing to doesn't catch the ball, I don't look good. Like, you may be giving me the credit for the win, but the only reason why I'm even in this conversation of being great is because I had people around me that just did what they were supposed to do. And it just so happens to be I'm the spotlight. But if they didn't do what they were supposed to do, I'm not even in this conversation.
Right. Well, and at the same time, that personality, which I appreciate, doesn't see that those people around him performed to the level they did because of him. Had it been a different quarterback, they may not have wanted to perform that well. They were all on a common mission.
Yeah, so I don't know how much you really follow football. I imagine it's not very much, if I recall. So this dynamic, which came about not too long, it was a couple of weeks ago. So the offensive coordinator, which is like the head of the offense for Tampa Bay, which is where Tom Brady plays, is Byron Leftwich. Okay, this guy was a starting quarterback for I think it was for the Jacksonville Jaguars, but never very good as a professional. He's now the offensive coordinator. Who's also several years younger than Tom Brady. Tom Brady is who Tom Brady is, and they're getting into this last drive, and Leftwich calls a particular play, and Tom Brady, you can see him at the sideline just going, "No, not doing it. Give me the," and then he eventually goes into the huddle, calls his own play, and boom, gets them into the position they need to get into. They kick the field goal, they win the game. At what point in time, or not even a point in time, do you choose to go against the grain? Because in most lives, in this particular case, you'd call the play that you're told to call. When you know it's wrong, do you? Because Sun Tzu would say, you call your own play, even if it was successful, you kill the captain that did it. Because they did not ask for permission and it was not granted. I don't know if I still agree with that today, but you're the boss, or the boss has told you to do something, and you know it's not going to go well. Do you go along with what the boss said? Do you go along with what you said? And I'll tell you my opinion first, in that when it gets down to that crunch time, I know one way or the other, it's not going to matter. I'm going to be blamed for the outcome. And if the boss is wrong, I'm still going to get blamed. So, you know what? I'm going to go with whatever my gut is at that particular time, because it's still my ass on the line. And I would rather go down losing based on my decision than going down based on the decision of someone else.
Yeah. Well, yeah, 100% yes. And, I mean, you're baiting me into it. I see what you're doing. But I just had this conversation yesterday with somebody. I was on a phone call, and one thing led to another, and they said something. I'm like, dude, don't get it twisted. I ain't asking if I can do this. Like, this is the right thing to do. Clearly, I'll take responsibility for it. I'm perfectly comfortable with that. One way or the other, it doesn't matter. And let's just move forward and solve this problem. I don't need somebody to tell me how to solve it. I'm not interested in that.
Yeah, because
do it.
In this particular case, I'm not talking about the aspect of a rule that exists, such as, hey, and I don't remember what I always have. I always ask accounting in this case, hey, what's my level of authority? Because they have the policy, not me. So I have the level of authority of, I think it's $100,000 for any budgeted item. I don't need to go for approval. It's budgeted. Right? I'm not talking, this is 150,000, so I'm going to not go and do the approval process. No, that's different.
Yes,
because that's an established thing. We're talking about, just like Tom Brady. No, your play is going to be wrong. And if I do it and it's wrong, they're still going to say Tom Brady lost. Right? And so in my case, it's Dan Ford, you caused the company to miss. No, if I'm going to hold the accountability for the result, I honestly don't care if it's my CEO in this case telling me to do this, or if I'm going to do my own decision. If I hold the accountability for the result, then I'm going to do the result that I think, or I'm going to do the action that I believe is going to result in the best thing, because I hold the accountability for the result. And so if the CEO goes, well, it didn't go the way it wants and you're fired, which is a very still possibility if I go in his decision, I would rather own the decision and be wrong and then be fired. Because if I do it their way,
I'd rather be responsible for my own destiny. Because the way I imagine it, this is, I think, essentially what I hear you saying, tell me if I'm wrong, is if you're going to deploy me to solve a problem, then I assume I have the autonomy to solve it the way I see best fit.
100%. And this is where I get to my people. I determine the what. Now, the what's with me and my peers, really. But
I know you mean.
I get to define the what. You get to define the how. We can talk about it. I can give you my experience. But ultimately, I'm not telling you how to do it. The when is a negotiation, and 90% of the time, I'm going to go with whatever you say you can get this done by. But I'm not telling you the how.
Right.
Ultimately, I'll go, you own it. Do it however you want. You want my opinion? I'll give you my opinion. I'm not dictating it. I only get to dictate the what. That's it.
Well, because, as a leader, the way I look at it is if I have to handle the how, then I'll handle the how.
I don't want to. I mean, here's the thing.
No, I want people to rise up and figure out where their autonomy exists within this framework. That's what's healthy. And I'll protect them when they fail as best as I can, as long as it's not gross negligence or illegal, right?
True.
But I want people to feel safe being vulnerable, to take that responsibility and try something. That's way more important than the outcome, especially for junior people. Just try something, man. Because you're probably not working on something that's that terrible anyway.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm not doing something correct.
Right. Doing something is much more important than doing nothing.
Yes. Well said. Amen.
Move. You stay, like, here's the thing. You're in a fight of whatever it is, politically. I mean, I look at everything as being, it's a battle of some type. If you stand still, you're going to get shot.
Yeah, keep moving.
Just keep moving. You can pivot, zigzag, break dance, whatever you got to do. You'll eventually, figure it out. But I think that many people wind up getting caught up in the aspect of, well, what if I'm wrong? And I go, well, what if you're right? What if you actually have to do that? How are you going to respond? Again, no whys, right? Mm-hmm. What if you have to do this? What are you going to do?
And I encourage people to look at it like asking somebody out on a date. Don't worry about whether or not they're in your league or not. Just ask them out. They'll tell you.
I already know the answer to that. They're not in my league. So, yeah. I mean, they're not in my league. I'm way above.
Yeah.
Which is why I've got the misses that I've got today. I mean, it's,
See, but I think that goes back to where we started. That's why it's important as a team to be vulnerable with each other, because I need to rely on everybody else around me to tell me when I'm going down the wrong path. I'm focused on going down a path.
Yeah,
and if we're all doing that for one another, to me, that's a really good team.
100%. And I think it's very important for people to understand this concept, which is there's a huge difference in between these things. Your opinion versus the direction that is chosen to go do not have anything necessarily to do with one another.
Right. Oh yeah, sure.
Right. And so what I tell my people, I want and desire your opinion, but the direction in which we are going to go is going to be based upon the data. Right? I have a huge aspect where I believe that every organization today could move away from Microsoft and into Office 365 to G Suite with zero issues, ultimately. Many people are scared to do that. But here's the big thing. Okay, that's your opinion. So, I was having this discussion because I believe at the place where I'm at, I want to move to G Suite. It's actually called like Google Workplace or whatever. I like G Suite better. G Suite, I think, is a much better term than Workplace.
Brand. It's a better brand. You can put that on a polo and give it to
like G Suite. I just like that aspect.
Google Workplace sounds like a prison.
Yeah, it does. So
like the deep south in Alabama.
Not a great context regardless, right? Like G Suite just sounds. I want to rep that logo, right? It's what it is. So I was having this conversation with our chief strategy officer, and he's like, I feel like it's gonna cut down on productivity. And I'm like, well, okay. I tend to agree with you, but I've been thinking about this quite a bit. Where is that productivity going to be lost at? And he's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, hey, we got 500 employees. All right, and off the top of my head, the overwhelming majority are in the branches and in the call center. What's the dominant application they're using. And it happens to be DNA, which is our core banking application. The next dominant application they're using is email. You don't think they know how to use Gmail? Are they really using Microsoft Word or Excel or PowerPoint? No. So servicing the member, there's zero productivity loss. Zero, because the overwhelming predominant applications they're using aren't Microsoft. And it's going to be even less Microsoft because the next release for DNA is browser-based. So Chromebook and they could do it because it's going to be in Google Chrome. Like,
right.
So, but again, I feel like there is going to be some productivity loss. I just can't pinpoint where. So let's say it's going to be the accounting department because they've got some crazy macros that are basically virtual basic things for Microsoft Excel. Fine. That huge department of 8 people, you get Microsoft Excel. So where's your productivity loss? We're moving to, and this is a huge thing for all those people thinking about this aspect. The processing of data is no longer local; it's in the cloud. Mm-hmm. And you can take a look at this. Like, so for me, it's all about Google BigQuery. They've got their own analytics engine. All of these companies that are in that space, Snowflake, name whatever you want, doing everything they can to take market share away from Microsoft Excel because that is the biggest contention. PowerPoint versus slides, who cares? Microsoft Word versus Google Docs, who cares? Outlook versus Gmail, who cares? Which used to be the biggest thing. Oh my gosh, we're doing an email conversion. It didn't matter if you were going from Exchange 5.5 to Exchange 2000. People were like, oh my gosh, it's a good version of email. The world's going to end. Now that's like the easiest thing.
Do you remember when being an Exchange administrator was like, that was almost on the tier of being like a BSD ad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude,
they were like the saints descended from the heavens.
Yeah. Oh, you've already done Exchange 2003? Oh. Now someone's like, yeah, dude, I do Exchange, and I'm like, so is my 12-year-old.
Yeah, you fucking jobber.
That's exactly. It just is. I just go, like, to me, the people who truly do kind of walk on water at this moment in technology, if you truly understand cloud operations, if you can manage that environment, which is such a combination of skills, it requires a level of application development, networking, and systems. It's a rare breed because that truly is like, so to speak, the jack of all trades aspect. Before it was like specialized.
Well, and actually what's interesting to me, because the way those platforms are, and they're all the same way in the way they're converged, is you also have to understand the business. Because you better pick the right fucking billing and pricing models. And sure, you're going to get input from that team, but that has to be incorporated into that decision-making matrix.
And this is why, again, I just go, look, I may be a little bit off in my prediction, but Google Cloud is winning more and more business. And they're taking so much more market share away from Microsoft. Because, so
that's who's losing.
They're hugely losing.
Because this is just my opinion, having worked in those platforms and teaching those platforms, is Azure is way more cumbersome in its integration between its own components than AWS. AWS is broad, so it has a lot of different things you have to figure out what all these different fucking things are because they all have weird names. But once you kind of get a handle on their nomenclature and what they call things, how you move between all that to set up an architecture is really smooth, really smooth.
Well, this just goes back to Google's ultimate plan of everything being in the browser.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And Amazon's doing a pretty good job of following that aspect because it eliminates the dependency upon Microsoft to where now the choice becomes, look, one, for a company, if I can eliminate the dependency of Windows and put people on a Chromebook and everything's in Google Chrome, which is how the world's going, is SaaS-based applications from a business perspective. Microsoft's only thing is to make it sure better, but they can't because they just iterate. Amazon and Google started with the internet first, not a thick client. And
That's right.
Google winds up having the advantage in the end today, with Microsoft being the third, Amazon being the second. When we fast forward, because, well, Google still owns Chromebooks and they own the group, right? That's the thing. The future is Chromebooks based upon where the world is going now. Like, it's almost there. Thick clients are leaving business world very fast, especially when my compute can be in those cloud environments, and that's the key.
That's right. Yep.
That's the key.
And this is yet another example of Microsoft actually being kind of the progenitor or the inventor of a technology, so to speak, and then not doing anything with it for decades, and somebody else picking it up and doing it correctly.
They are this decade's BlackBerry.
Yep, 100. That's well said. Because I remember my first startup was a web app startup, and it was .NET when .NET first came out. And the early versions of that, Microsoft had this project they called Hailstorm, and it was its code name. No, listen, man. And so that actually turned into. You remember the early versions of Hotmail had Passport Live, and then that got tied into Xbox Live. So that was their vision for the federated identity piece of Hailstorm. And they were very clear that what they wanted were what now we know as web applications and software as a service. And then they developed it up to the point, and then now Google has Google Cloud and Amazon has AWS, and they're killing it.
The best thing Amazon has done is open a new facility here in Elkhart, Indiana. And hey, Amazon, I know you're watching this show, so you're welcome for me telling you all the market research.
Did you see Bezos greet William Shatner when he landed today?
No, I didn't.
Oh, dude, it's
so let me ask you this. All right, you are top 10 wealthiest person in the world.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think of your net worth on an annual basis would you donate to nonprofits, charitable organizations?
What percent of top wealth am I in again? 10%?
Yeah, you're no, not 10%, top 10.
Top 10 individuals, period.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So I'm into being billions there. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, these numbers are so large, man. I can't do the math fast enough to come up with my head. It would be millions.
So there was just a quick article that it just sort of highlights. Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk donate less than 1% of what they make on an annual basis.
Yeah, see, because
that may be a lot of money, right? But it's still less than 1%.
Yeah. See, because I was thinking like percent-wise, 10%, but those numbers are so large I can't do the math fast enough in my head to tell you what the actual number is. But 10% kind of feels right.
Well, it's funny, and I might be wrong on this, but the 10%, I think the reason why it feels right. So I'm pretty sure biblically they say you're supposed to tithe 10%.
Yeah. Right.
Right. And Now, my opinion, I don't do 10% to the church. I do 10% to nonprofits and charities because I feel it's the same context, right? I feel like churches have their have their place, and we've talked. I'm very much a spiritual person, and I believe in the church, and I give a good amount there personally. Um, but I want some of my money going some other places too, and so in principle, I go easily 10% of my income goes to charitable and nonprofits.
For the record, 10% of 1 billion is 100 million. Yeah, that feels right.
So that's, I mean, those two cats, I mean, again, 10%. I mean, even them doing only 1%. I mean, I first one, I do not like government being involved in almost anything. Because I believe that many people generally want others to succeed as well, and they're willing to donate money. There's plenty of people that are going to donate to charitable organizations. So when you get to that point, you've got, I mean, I don't know what their net worth is, but it's not $1 billion. It's much more than $1 billion. They're $100 billion.
Yeah.
Well, at $100 billion, even if you donate 10%, you still got $90 billion. And you get to choose what you're going to increase an area of expertise in. Because why not? Like, again, what's the difference between 100 billion and 90 billion? I can't even fathom. I mean, you're going to make, in all honesty, you'll make more in interest than that 10 billion you just gave.
Well, right. And so, if we're just speaking from a pure business standpoint, that's why part of the two, I think 10% makes sense, especially at that scale, because I know my investments are going to return higher than that.
Yeah.
And I think, because I've thought about this, not at this scale, but I've thought about this. I think I would partition that in a way where some of it goes to established nonprofit support, and then some of it I would establish for my own goals.
Well, and I mean, again, I don't want to go so far as to say nonprofits and charities. I think part of that money into like angel funding and VC funding, because what you're looking at doing is, well, you're also increasing the communities in which you're serving by having those funds available to new startups, because that's going to increase more small business, which increases innovation and advancements in all parts of our society. So, hey, which is a number again that I don't know the answer to this, but I'm pretty sure, because I only read the highlights, guaranteeing that article didn't say how much someone like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are contributing to angel funding and VC funding, which to me, I go, same thing as a nonprofit, because a nonprofit is, they're not looking to make a profit, but they're not a charity.
Right.
A true charity's overall goal is zero. Nonprofit is, I still need to make revenue. I don't need to I can't break even because that means the nonprofit organization, like is a credit union. Our goal is not to break even. We break even, our members don't benefit.
Right.
A charity is to, at the end of the day, very similar to government, break even.
I'll tell you what's crazy, man. Put this in perspective. So 10% of 1 billion, and I did this in the calculator, so I know the math is correct, is 100 million. Every year that I did that, I could fund one person for their entire life if they lived from 0 to 100 for $1 million a year. And I could do that every fucking year.
Actually, I think you're a little bit off because you're not taking into account just the interest on $100 million.
Right, no, I'm just saying if you took a snapshot of it, partitioned it off, and then broke that out over the course of somebody's life, if they live to be 100, that's $1 million per year.
Yeah, that's basically you putting $100 million in someone's account in a vacuum that acquires no interest. It's $1 million a year.
Not a savings.
Right. Like zero interest. You just have, here's $100 million, you get nothing from it.
Just do the best with your life that you can do. Here you go.
There is practically no way any individual could spend $1 million a year. Not being, I mean, like I said, practical.
No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
You go and buy a top level Mercedes, it's $100,000. You have a house, average house price in a decent area, let's just say it's $400,000.
You're still paying cash.
Your living expenses are probably no more than $36,000. Food, gas, utilities. You take.
You know what? Sorry to cut you off, man. I was just thinking about this. Yeah, no, fuck you. This is what I would do. 100% guaranteed. I just decided this is what I would do. I would figure out some type of selection process, and I would pick one person in a year, and I would fund them $1 million into. We have to figure this out, but let's say into an escrow account until they're of legal age, and then they can do whatever they want to lead their best life with it. And I would run it as a big social experiment.
Yeah, look, because I'm saying, like, if that happened to me, and I wanted to live just a advanced life, so for me, what does that mean? I'm going to spend probably $80,000 a year in continuing to educate myself.
Mm-hmm.
I will just say, in general, I would take out a mortgage for my home. And let's just say that mortgage on the home is roughly $24,000 a year, $2,000 a month. My car, let's say I go to a $100,000 car. It's $100,000 that year. It's $20,000 over 5 years. Let's say, with my significant other, another $20,000 a year. I'm going to take 4 vacations a year, which each vacation is $20,000. So that's $80,000 because I'm going to fly first class. It's going to be top notch. I'm going to go out twice a week on a date, which another $12,000 because I'm going top notch. $500 a date. Dude, I haven't even fucking broken.
Dude, you're not even close. I mean, you're barely halfway. Barely.
I'm not even close to it. Like, I can't fathom that. It's just because I don't need to be, bitches and Benjamins. Right? It's just not. It's not it.
Well, really, right? Really, all you got to do is stay away from the cocaine and hookers, and you'll be okay.
I mean, if John Jones can't do it.
Jesus Christ, dude. You got the joke. Thank you. But yeah, man, I would want to see how iteratively over a generation individuals could affect change across social fabrics. Because $1 million a year, man, that's you could do something with that.
I would not be able, Because here's the thing, like, money doesn't make you happy. But I've never known a person with money to be sad. Right? But with that being said, I think money will amplify whoever you are as a person.
Yeah, sure.
If you're a dick, you're going to be a real dick. If you're a good person, you're going to be a really good person. So for me, $1 million a year, hey, I happen to like living here in the Midwest. I like the people. The only thing I don't like is I don't have direct flights to very many places. But outside of that,
for $1 million a year, you can solve that problem.
Yeah, for $1 million a year, I can fly direct wherever I want, right? But I live in it's a nice home. We've got some work we got to do. Dude, we didn't pay very much for this, like $250,000, 5,000 square feet. I got a dedicated studio and an office. I mean, it's like eventually. I mean, everything just plays out. If I had $1 million a year, the only difference I might have done, I might have actually bought a home that's directly on the river, that has a dock, and I could get a boat and have some fun. But in all honesty, I'm not a guy that wants a boat, so I don't need to be on the river. Like a nice little lake might be nice. That someone has a lake boat. There's a neighbor that can make a good friend. Because again, I don't want to own a boat. I don't find enjoyment of being the person that's got to captain the boat. I want to be the person that's like, cool, you got a boat? I'll buy the beer.
Right.
I want to relax.
See, it's interesting. It's interesting because you can ratchet this down as we wrap this up. Okay, so maybe $1 million per year for one person's excessive. How about two people, $500,000 each?
To even 500. Honestly,
Still
look. Here's the bottom line. 500,000. I don't know that I could even spend 500,000 in a year. Not based on my, because I don't desire the things that require more than 500,000.
Right.
I just don't. There are certain things that I have some pieces that I enjoy. Like, hey, look, I've got a nice car. I like to dress nicely. I like to go out. I want to spend my money in experiences, but at the same time, I want to grow. If I'm always spending an experience, then I can't grow.
Well, right, but nice clothes and nice cars only have an expense up to a point. So once you make a certain amount of money, those things are no longer that expensive.
Here's the thing. I make decent money, okay? So my suits are not cheap if I bought them retail. I buy my suits still from Amazon, and this is a great part about being a man, in that there's only so many ways a blue, black, gray suit can be styled. You do a 2-button, it doesn't really matter. Those never go out of style. Damn. Just lost the ninja. Well, my friends, that I will switch this up because the power went out. I'll close up my thought. The power just went out on my Chromebook. Evidently, I didn't really have that set up. But my point in this nature is that my suits, black, gray, blue, pinstripes, non-pinstripes, Ralph Lauren, Calvin Klein, retail are, $800. I genuinely get them, or generally, not generally get them for less than $150, and I'll tend to spend $50 in altering them because I wear French cuffs. I like my pants to be cuffed as well, and so $200 for a suit. I have, on a regular occasion, gotten some of those suits for less than $100. So I buy them when they're on sale. Even if I had $1 million a year given to me, I'm likely to do the exact same thing. I want the deal. I'm not looking for the highest price. Anyway, with all that said, truly appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you. I hope to see you again soon. If you got any questions, please put them in the tagline. Hit me up in any of the DMs. And you know what? Have a great rest of your week. Take care.